Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Air Twister, a modern rail shooter. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer EaseNet, Air Twister originally released for Apple Arcade in summer of 2022. Now in November of 2023, it's available on all current major platforms, and we're looking at the Nintendo Switch version today. So this title is from legendary developer Yu Suzuki, who was known for Space Harrier among several other titles. And this game bears a lot of resemblance to Space Harrier with some Panzer Dragoon and maybe Rez thrown in there as well. So if you like that style of rail shooter, then this is a title I highly encourage you check out, as there's a lot of fun, interesting gameplay here. And it also has a really unique rock opera soundtrack from Dutch artist Valencia. So with that said, we find ourselves at the main menu. There's actually quite a bit here, but rather than go over the menu first, we'll dive into the game itself, show you the gameplay, and then we'll come back to the menu. Starting the game, we're dropped right into the first stage here, and you can kind of see a little bit of what the gameplay has to offer. So we play the character Princess Arch, and as you can see, it's very, very similar to titles like Space Harrier, where we're viewing the character in a 3D perspective, but this is very much a rail shooter where we're traveling along a set path. We can move ourselves around the screen. In addition to that, we also have the ability to fire our shot, and if enemies pass in front of us, then we'll lock onto them, and if we press the fire button, it will release the lock-on. When you initially start the game, you have 6 total lock-ons, but as you progress through the meta progression that this game has, and there's quite a bit of unlocks that are available, you can unlock additional lock-ons. So you can lock on to, I believe, up to 10 enemies at a time. So the first stage really does give us a good feel of the way that the enemies move, and there aren't very many challenges where we won't have enemies that will be shooting at us very often. They'll be kind of approaching, but it does a really good job of kind of setting you up for success, of like teaching you this is the way the game is. After going through several different waves of enemies, one thing to note, as we defeat enemies, we receive stars mainly for completing formations, and those stars are ultimately what we use to buy unlocks throughout the course of the rest of the game. So after we complete the stage, there is this cutscene which is skippable, and then we're fighting our first boss. So in a situation like this, you can see where having the additional lock-ons would be very helpful. When you're first playing it, you can only lock on to 6 segments of the boss at once, but with additional lock-ons, we can lock on to several and fire away. So one thing to note, this game does have some of the issues that you have with rail shooters, where sometimes it can be difficult to go and identify the enemies or the shots that are coming your way and dodge them, but I do feel things are fairly, with a little bit of practice, it's fairly easy to get used to the way the gameplay ultimately works. For a life system, we have hearts, and as we get hit, the hearts will decrease. However, when we complete a stage successfully, we have this overall tally where we're scored for boss clear time, total enemy formations destroyed, and if we take no damage, then we get an additional credit, and we're ranked on the score we've achieved for the stage. Based off the rank we get, we heal a certain number of hearts, so I feel it's a really generous system that way. And with that, we can find ourselves on stage 2. But before we progress any further, let's return to the main menu and talk about what really is kind of the meat of the game itself. So the gameplay is really solid as far as a 3D rail shooter is concerned. So if you like that, if you enjoyed games like Space Harrier back in the day, I can't recommend this game enough. But if you're interested in what else this game has to offer, there is some here, and the majority of that's under the adventure map. So before I do go into the adventure map, just a quick note, I feel like the UI is not great. So the game originally came out in Apple Arcade, and it kind of has that mobile UI, like still present in the console version, but some things just don't translate as well. For one thing, the cursor for what we have highlighted is actually pretty difficult to see. So we've got kind of a golden background, and the highlight for where the cursor's at is also a golden hue. So there were just some design choices that I feel could have been done better. Diving into the adventure map. So this is where we're going to be spending the stars that we earn to unlock both additional hearts for our character, so basically giving us more life. We start out with 3 pink hearts, which are the full ones, and then like a full bar of yellow hearts. As you can see here, over here on the left, it says collect 20 of these to turn into a full pink heart. But as you can see here, there's a ton of unlocks if you include the hearts. So you would initially start going off the hearts, but then there's also items which will make things easier will make our gameplay easier, that we can equip things that will either defend us against enemies or defend us against the bosses, that sort of thing. But in addition to that, there's a ton of cosmetic unlocks as well. So we've got ones where we'll be unlocking face paint, where we'll be unlocking new outfits, new hairstyles. As you can zoom out and see, there's a lot here, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface despite putting a lot of time into the game. There's here, as I was mentioning, we can increase the number of lock-ons that we have available. There's the ability to go and slow down time. We can go and unlock that. There's the songs for the awesome soundtrack. You can unlock those so you can listen to them in this mode as well. And there's additional weapons. So the first one that you would come across is this Starburst here, and to be honest, I feel like this a weapon kind of breaks the entire game, as it makes the rest of it super easy. So if you're looking to really quickly finish the game, beeline for this particular weapon in your progression, and it shouldn't be a problem at all. In addition to that, we also have, if you haven't unlocked the items themselves, once you have enough trial tickets, you can try out the different weapons or the accessories here, but it's actually pretty easy to unlock them all quickly without that. I haven't actually earned enough trial tickets to even try one out, and I have all the weapons. But there's these extras under this challenge mode. So we have a full arcade mode, which differs from the story experience. So here we have a set amount of life, and also all these difficulty settings, where the story mode doesn't have a default difficulty. We do have default difficulties in arcade mode. So if you're looking for more of a challenge in the gameplay, this is where you're going to find it. But we've got bonus stages where we can play the bonus stages in the game itself. Just through this one, there's these fluffy stages which I haven't actually been able to unlock. So basically, score attacks. Then there's also Tap Breaker. There's a turbo mode and a boss rush, which you'll ultimately unlock through the adventure mode, and an extra stage you can tackle for extra cosmetics and that sort of thing as well. This one does have a high level of difficulty, so just keep that in mind. And in addition to all that, there's also at the very top, so you've got the world guide. This will give you a story, kind of a little bit of information about the enemies and the character that we're playing as well. So if you like the world you're seeing here, definitely check that out. But there's also events, and this one is where we see a little bit more of the mobile core that the game had. So here we have a set of daily tasks that we go into to play, and there's also weekly tasks as well. And one thing that's a little bit frustrating, basically having this one released when it did and kind of playing all the way through it, I still haven't unlocked the last of the weekly tasks, which, as you can see here, unlocks Fluffy Stage. So I do feel a little bit sad that the way the system is lined up, I haven't been able to fully engage with it. However, it is really nice to go and see this style of incentivizing replayability. So you would come back and say, I want to go and play this game more so I can complete the weekly tasks. And then you also have all these, they list them as time limited, but they're basically just these challenges that as we complete them, let's see if I can find one I haven't completed yet, then we can you select the challenge, and you go over to receive rewards. This is another one of the areas where I am saying the UI, the menus are a little clunky. And lastly, what I haven't touched bases is the equipment, all the unlocks for both the cosmetics and the weapons themselves. So here we've got different outfits that we can equip. There's the flight suit that Princess Arch starts with. We also have a ninja outfit. There's Sandpunk, there's Elegant, there's Cyber. There's a couple I haven't unlocked yet. There's also the Ninja Kimono, the Witch's Wardrobe, and like this medal. So one thing I do think is a lot of fun, especially with the vibe the rock opera soundtrack gives. The Witch set I think is wonderful for the game. So we can select the Witches set, and there's all these different colors that we'll unlock throughout the course of the gameplay. Like this cute cotton candy pink one that we can equip her in. In addition to that, we have all these like different face paints that we can put on that will unlock throughout the course of our gameplay. Different hairstyles. And to match the witch's outfit, let's throw on a witch's cap. But one of the things that's the most game-changing in addition to the cosmetics is the weapons. So you can unlock additional weapons, and there are some pretty decent descriptions here at the bottom for what they could do. And the one that I feel breaks the game is the Starburst. So I'll go ahead and show that one off just so you can see what I mean. But there's also like some that are different skinned versions of others. So like the Suzumi drum gun here is basically the same as the Starburst as far as how it functions. And there's even this really awesome witch's broom, which we're a little bit past Halloween, which is unfortunate, but like just the aesthetic here is just amazing. But that one basically functions the same as the, I believe it's the Lightning Chaser. I'm not 100% sure on certain on that, but once again, for the purposes of showing off what I was saying about the gun, we'll equip the Starburst, and we'll now take the opportunity to dive into Stage 2. Entering Stage 2 once more, now we're sporting our new drip as well as our new weapon. So as things were before, we still have the same mechanics where we can fire our weapon like normal and we'll lock on to enemies, and we can press the fire button to release those lock-ons. But now, if we hold down the fire button, we'll build up a charge that will ultimately release this explosive shell. So the thing that makes this so broken is it basically acts as a screen clear where all the weaker enemies will basically be wiped, and it'll quickly deal damage to most bosses. There are a couple bosses it's not very effective against. So the way I would kind of liken this shot is it basically gives you infinite Nova bombs from something like Star Fox as an example, for another great rail shooter franchise. So that really does go and break the game and make things significantly easier to get through. So if you're looking for an easy way to blast your way through story mode, go and pick up this particular weapon and give it a try. At any rate, there's Air Twister served up for your enjoyment. So as far as minus flavors are concerned, I don't really feel like there's a whole lot to talk about as far as the gameplay itself, as this is really kind of just core to the whole rail shooter genre. But one thing to note, there is that issue with the menus just being a little too designed in that mobile aesthetic. It just didn't translate as well to consoles, in my opinion. One thing that would have been nice is if there was the option to turn on a reticule, so you could just see where you were aiming in front of you for the lock-on, but it's more in the vein of Space Harrier if that's not there. So we find ourselves fighting the boss of Stage 2. It's actually these 3 bone dragons, so they each can be defeated individually. Another minor complaint, there is no life bar for the enemies, but they do turn colors to a deeper shade of red as they take damage, so you can tell how far along you are in the fight based off of that. But as far as the plus flavors are concerned, I love how much this game has in terms of what you can unlock. All the different game modes, all the all the character customization, the additional weapons, the music, it all adds to a ton of replayability as long as you enjoy the core gameplay loop. And then one thing to go on note is really, I kind of feel that going with Yu Suzuki, going with the kind of soundtrack he did, really goes and puts a unique twist on like the genre as a whole, where you wouldn't expect this kind of a soundtrack with this kind of a game, and it like might take a little bit of getting used to, but I really do enjoy this like music, and it just kind of helps change things up. And then lastly, the gameplay really is like that classic Space Harrier gameplay with a little bit of Panzer Dragoon thrown in there as well. So if you like those kind of games, and for me, I love that kind of gameplay, then this one is an easy recommend. So there you have it. Air Twister, a solid recommend from the chef. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.